Hello, Mandible Judy fans and listeners. Thanks for joining us. I am joined tonight. I'm Chris Burke. I am the creator of Mandible Judy. I'm hoping that music is not too loud for you there. Let's bring it down a little bit more. I have with me tonight Noa Graham. Hi, Nancy. Noah, how are
Hi.
you?
Good.
You're there. Good. Okay, I can hear
Yeah,
you. Okay. Um, uh, Noah plays René Kaderbeck and Ebba in René Kaderbeck and Mandible Judy and Ebba in Under Dead Water. And I invited her tonight to talk a little bit about her career and what's been going on with her lately. Um, you want to fill us in on what the latest news is with you?
the latest news. Well, I'm looking for work,
Aren't we
as a
all?
lot of actors are.
Yeah.
Trying to decide whether to, well, uh, what is happening now, most recently, is I did a short film in the fall,
Mm-hmm.
and that's called Elegy for a Glacier, and it takes place in Colorado and concerns a mother who's an environmental activist and her daughter who's a glaciologist who's been asked to come to her hometown. The two of them are estranged, and she comes back to assess a glacier because the town wants to build a ski resort there. And the mother's been fighting against the ski resort. So it puts them at odds with each other. It's sort of a contemporary revisionist Western told in under 20 minutes. Could be a feature length, but you got to start somewhere. So,
That's awesome.
um, and that was really, really fun because I'd never been to Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's been very slow during the pandemic, especially theater wise. I haven't done any theater
Yeah.
since I saw you in Brooklyn in the fall of 2019.
Yeah. Wow.
Um, but I did a one day on a shoot on a movie called Paint with Owen Wilson. So I have a very tiny role. It's just one scene, but it was with him and it was really fun to do. And that was in the spring. And I
Where
think
was
that will be a very funny film. It's a romantic comedy, and I think it comes out in 2022.
great? We did that shoot in upstate New York.
Yes, in Saratoga.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's great.
yeah,
S-
it was
So,
fun.
so do you have a how does this work with you? Do you mostly do your jobs through an agent, or you go through trades and things like that, or a little bit of
Yeah,
both?
I don't have an agent, um, and I'm always thinking that yeah, I should try to find one, but
Mm.
I don't know how easy it would be for me because I'm not young. I think,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know that that's true. I just haven't really put a lot of effort into getting one. And I was thinking maybe I'd wait until I had clips from these two projects because
Mm-hmm.
the other things I have are older and yeah.
Yeah,
So
right.
I might work on that in the coming year. We'll see what will happen there. The pandemic is so weird. I don't know your experience of it, but I'm
Yeah.
sure there must be someone other than me having the experience that I wake up one day energized to do what I'm doing, and then the next day it'll be like, I should go back to school to be a climate scientist, or,
Yeah.
I mean, another day, another career possibility.
Wow. Yeah, I don't ask myself those questions anymore, but but I
Yeah,
do
I'm
ask
doing
a
it
lot of other
less.
ones.
I'm doing
Yeah.
it less and more. It's like I just need to pay the rent. So
Mm.
why don't I figure out how to do that?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that is the great motivator in lovely capitalist America.
it
Um,
is. And in the past 2 weeks, I've thought, okay, I really just want to get back on stage. I want to do some live theater and a few auditions. They were all
mhm.
unpaid things, but they were plays I care about. So I was
Yeah.
thinking of doing them. And then in the last 2 days, well, there's a COVID case in my build. There's two active COVID cases in my building.
Oh no.
And I have several friends that have told me they have COVID like in the last
Yeah.
4 days.
Yeah.
And I
Same.
thought, well, maybe it's time to shut it down and just hibernate.
Hmm.
So I don't know what's going to happen next. We'll see what next week brings. It seems to change all the time.
Yeah, it's true. In the city. I mean, obviously there was a huge rush right before the holidays for everybody to get tested because, and
Yeah.
it's amazing. Like I totally was able to see that coming, and yet I still waited until the last minute to go get tested. I mean, by the last
So
minute, I
did,
mean like the Monday before Christmas.
so you
And
went and got a PCR test, you mean?
yeah, yeah, and I got the results the night before I had to leave. The night before Christmas Eve, I was my brother-in-law was coming up to driving up to pick me up because I'm dog sitting, so we had to bring the dog down there with me. So
Oh, okay.
he drove up to pick us up, and I didn't know up until the night before, like hours before that I was
Wow.
going to go at all.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm just thankful that New York City Test and Trace was so on it to get the results back that quickly because they were, man, it was lines around the block everywhere to get tested,
Yeah.
and all the rapid tests were gone from the pharmacies.
That's what I was wondering. They were hard to get here too. They passed them out to
Hmm.
re- uh, city residents, but they ran out of them.
Yeah,
And that was only enough for one test. So really, if anyone's traveling, I don't see how one test. I don't know. Maybe that's enough if you're gonna walk into the house and just stay there. I guess that's what people are
yeah,
doing. I don't know. We didn't go anywhere. We didn't do any.
right. That's the thing is you take the test, but then presumably you're taking the test so you can travel. So when you
Right.
travel, you probably need
Exactly.
another
Our approach
test.
to this is just hide out in our house. Don't
Yeah,
go.
that's wise, I think. I seriously, we had all kinds of dinner plans set up for after the holidays and just canceled everything.
Really.
It's just
Yeah.
safer. When a couple of weeks we'll see where we are. Things may be a little
Right.
bit better,
Yeah.
or they may not. We'll go back to riding our bikes around the city and
Being
just
outside. Yeah,
distancing.
I've been thinking about that too, is how to spend more time outside this winter.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's hard when it's because it's going to get cold, so that's gonna make it hard. It's one thing
Yeah.
when we were like locked down in the spring and summer. At least we could get outside and get
I
some
think
fresh
you
air.
just,
But
bite the bullet and put on some long underwear and get out there.
yeah, that's definitely the plan.
Get a puffy jacket.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, I should pull it out. It's hanging
I
up
have a
over there.
really puffy jacket. It
Yeah,
keeps me so warm. And there's a
yeah.
lot of great hiking around where I live, so that is
Oh yeah,
always an
right. Of
option.
course, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, I love it up there. It's been a while.
Yeah, you need to come back.
I know, I know. Yeah, I, God, we really want to get out of New York City. To be honest, kind of ready to leave.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've been looking at other places. We looked at Austin and thought about that for a while, but it's too late for Austin. I think.
You think?
Elon Musk lives there now. I don't want. I don't
Right,
want
that's a
to
downer. That's a
live.
big downer.
There's a lot of really cool stuff going on in Austin, and
Yeah, I know people have moved there and very happy there.
yeah. I mean, it's a busy town. It's good specifically for the arts.
Yes.
That would be a good place to be in general. We would be pretty far away from family, which would my
Yeah.
mom is 92. She's
Mm,
92. She just turned 91 in September. Sorry.
wow.
So yeah, so kind of want to stay nearby if
Yeah.
possible. Um, and but we've thought about other places. Decatur, Georgia is beautiful. There's like a lot of nice. It's funny because both of the states that we've thought about moving to are red states that have like are on hope like up and coming possible
Oases.
blue states. Like on the edge of becoming a blue state. But yeah, uh, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. So what? So I'm just we. I mean we I brought this to you. This project to you. When was it? God, 2019, I guess.
It was fall 2019,
Yeah,
yeah,
it was.
when I was staying in your apartment.
That's
And
right.
that
You
you
came
I
down for
was just
that
thinking
play.
of that today, and I was thinking how it's kind of like my mind was very trained on what I was doing, and
Hmm.
like you described it to me, and I was this I felt like there was a fog around it, like I couldn't really focus
I'm
on what you were
sure.
saying, and it sounded very, very involved and intricate, which is even more, like 10 times more so now than it
I
was
did.
then.
It is really the story took on its own. I can't. I'm trying to remember whether you had decided to come down and do that play and asked me about staying at my place first, or
Yes,
whether. So then I just
yes,
said, "Hey,
because you asked me in your apartment one day.
wow,
Yeah.
wow, how about
Yeah,
that for
and
a
I'm so
happenstance?"
glad because it's
Me
been one
too.
of the funnest things.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
good.
love that it keeps on going.
Yeah, yeah, I
Coming
really
back
enjoy it
saying,
too.
now we're doing this, now we're doing this.
Yeah, yeah, and we hope to keep it going even longer. I just, I'm really one of my favorite things in the world is universe building. Fictional universe building.
Sure.
I really enjoy it, and Mandible Judy's really kind of given me an excuse to do a lot of that. And now I'm being helped
Yeah.
by Clayton Romero, and all of you guys. I mean, Mike Hall has been a big help too. Hopefully he'll join us at some point tonight. Um, and the cast has just been fantastic. God, I keep saying this, and I know I sound like a broken record, but I just feel so lucky to have just like on the first go round to have connected with so many good actors, just out of
Yeah.
nowhere. And like I feel like there are a couple of actors that I connected with from, well, first of all, a lot of you are from different worlds. Like you're not really from the podcasting world at all, or at least you weren't
Or the
at that
horror
point.
world, which is
Yeah,
another thing
exactly.
you've got a lot of. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I a couple of the actors that I brought on, like Aaron Lillis, um, Bonnie Bogovich, they are pretty much, they're from the video game and Ty Anderson video game and podcasting worlds. And so all three of them knew people, and suggested people for me to contact for other
Mm,
roles. And it just
mm.
turned out to be like a gold rush, like a vein of gold, like it's just following the
Yeah.
vein, like
Oh, that's
more, here's
great.
some more gold,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
It was great. Graham Rowett came out of that, and Gary Scales, and God, Tyler Jackson Price, and oh man, and then people I just found like on Twitter. I just put up a casting call on Twitter, and I found Gabriel Hicks that way, and he turned out
Oh,
really
yeah.
great.
Well, my son Ray cast his that way. They used
Hmm.
Twitter. He found a casting director on Twitter, and the casting director put out a call partly on Twitter. And they're
Cool.
all on Twitter, all these voice actors.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that worked out really nice. One of my favorite stories is for the role of Danielle Buchmann in this season of Under Dead Water. He's the Haitian crewman on the Olivia
Right.
Barrington.
Right.
For the I went to Aaron again suggested I contact this Twitter feed called I think it's called Actors of the Global Majority,
Oh,
and
okay.
it's
Yeah.
people of color basically, and
Hmm.
you know I I I tweeted at them. They answered. They say, "Here's the website. Check it out. We've got a whole directory, and you have to ask for permission to see it." So I showed them my
Mm.
bona fides. They gave me permission, and I put up a bunch of calls. But then I like directly contacted like I don't know 6 or 7 people from this website, and they're
Hmm.
literally from all over the world, right? Um, and I just specified Haitian Creole knowledge of Haitian Creole plus, or you know even even ethnicity. Haitian Creole ethnicity is even better. Um, you know, and I didn't look at where any of these people were from. I contacted them all, and this one guy, Emmanuel Elpanor, got back to me, and he just sounded perfect, and I was really excited. I mean, I tried out a few other people, and none of them were nearly as perfect as he was for this role. And so we're talking about it on the phone one day, where he's basically doing a phone audition with me. I was like, "Man, you have the role. This is perfect. I thank you so much. I mean, it's not a lot of pay, but I'll give you what I can." And he said, "I said, how are we going to do this? I see you're in New York." And he said, "Yeah, I'm in Brooklyn." I was like, "Really? I'm in Brooklyn too." He said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "Yeah, I'm from a neighborhood you probably never even heard of. It's called Kensington." There was silence on the other end. He went, "Get the out." He lived a block away from me.
Are you kidding me?
And
And he
I contacted
recorded
them.
it in person with you?
We did, actually, weirdly enough, ended up doing remotely just because
Uh-huh.
of COVID. He
Yeah.
just we just decided it was probably safer for him to just do it at home, but he was a
Oh,
block
that's
away, and I was on the
incredible.
phone with him when he was doing it.
Have
It
you
was
met him?
no, not in the flesh, and
Oh,
it's really weird because right after we recorded, he moved to Manhattan.
oh,
So yeah,
that's
so
so
he lives there
cool.
now, but he I was just in touch with him. I'm hoping he might show up at some point tonight too. I sent him an invitation. But he's a great guy, and he just turned out to be so good for this part. So it's crazy how this all worked out.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
remember where I got for where David Steele where I got his name from, but he also turned out to be somebody with a lot of friends in the business and recommended some other people. And anyway, it's been really cool. But yeah,
Yeah.
so Renee
Incredible.
Kaderbeck. So I'm trying to remember what.
Yeah.
Do you remember what the original direction I gave you for that role was? I have no idea
You,
anymore.
well, what I recall is you saying that she was sort of a conspiracy theorist, which I
Okay.
feel like didn't really turn out to be true for
No,
very long.
it didn't.
The whole thing about the pharmaceutical company,
Yeah.
um, she pretty much drops that,
Yeah.
I feel. But yeah, that was that, and that was that first episode was. It's so funny because I have such a clear visual image of being in a car shouting out of the car window, which
Oh, funny.
is, imaginary,
Yeah, yeah.
um, about that. Yeah.
Right. That's right. Yeah, you're yelling about about the pharmaceutical company.
Yeah.
Magnus Becker Pharmaceutical. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny how I mean it's and the reason that it changed so much is because of you. I mean, it's what always happens is like
Uh,
you write the part, you start directing the actor starts bringing this other stuff to it, and you
mm,
start saying that's where we need to take it. That's who the
mm,
character is. It's not anything that
mm.
I have in my mind. It's your translation of what I said to you, and
Yeah. Well, I love the idea of being a conspiracy theorist and that the
right,
pharmaceutical company is responsible for everything. And of course, since then, now we have the pandemic and pharmaceutical companies are making obscene amounts of
yeah,
money.
yep,
Um, so it would be even more fun in that light. But I think what kind of happened instead is that she was motivated by loving her family.
hmm
That
that's
kind
true.
of took over everything,
She
every
did become
scene.
pretty nutty. She did kind of continue to be a bit
Definitely. I mean, it's
unhinged.
definitely there's this weird distortion that goes on in her
Yeah,
love of her family.
yeah, right. Judy's rocks. Yeah, it's super. It's so fun. Oh man, yeah, and yeah, like I just it's so funny like writing these scenes and thinking, okay, I need to keep this somewhat realistic. How would this character actually react in reality if this happened? And it's like, you know, it depends on the character, it depends on a lot
Yeah.
of stuff, and
Yeah, it depends on everything. My son, Asa, was introducing me to a sitcom last night called Staff Lets Flats. Do you know this?
no.
So it's British, so
Hmm.
letting a flat is renting a flat.
Okay,
Staff is the guy's name who works for the
okay,
realtor.
right.
And the actor's name is Jamie Demetrio, and he was on Fleabag. He played
Oh yeah.
one of the lovers on Fleabag, the one on the bus with the overbite.
Uh huh.
So he created this show and stars in it, and it's so hilarious. But the way people behave in this environment, there's nothing about realism. Everything just comes out of the eccentricity of their character, and it's
Right, right.
hilarious because you realize that believability is all about what's believable for this person given their peculiarities in this
Right,
situation. You know,
right.
it's
Yeah,
not
so
really
like,
dictated by the situation. It's an interaction of different factors.
yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah.
So like when I
Um,
write something happening with Bonnie and Catherine and you all and Marco and whoever else present, each of those characters reacts differently. Bonnie, freaks out, like,
mhm.
nearly has a meltdown and screams. Catherine is a little bit more contained, a little bit more in control. Marco, likewise, because he's got his Kuji in and his, basically his meditation that kind of helps him control things mentally. But yeah, I think your Renee basically kind of lives in this other world. When something like that happens, she kind of retreats to that other world a bit more. And the
Mm.
more the craziness happens, I think you very adequately portrayed that retreat into kind of not in every scene, but most scenes where it was really the shit was hitting the fan, so to speak. You did a good job of kind of getting that dreamy kind of sound in your voice.
Yeah, she doesn't flip out. She doesn't
Yeah.
freak out. It's not reactive in that way. It's almost like an enforced normalcy, according to Renee.
Mm.
Bo, you need this, and
Right.
and even just the word bow, I really luxuriate in that wonderful vowel there. That's
Yeah, yeah. Right,
there's
right.
something.
Bo.
I feel like everything about what she feels about Bo is in that O.
Yeah, wow, that's great. Wow. That's awesome. Language is a funny thing.
Oh, it really, really is. Yeah.
I like the scene where well, I think my favorite scene, one of my favorite scenes is the scene with you and Catherine in the car when Catherine drops you off you know after you've basically the whole thing at Westmore State Psychiatric Hospital, and Bo gets arrested, and Judy freaks out and kills people, and Catherine brings you back, and it's one of those scenes where you're a little bit off in your world. You're kind of, you know, cocoon, let's call it psychological
Yeah.
cocoon,
Yeah.
but you're communicating clearly with her. Wonder where Judy is now, and stuff like that. It's so
Yeah.
effective. I really love that scene. Um, and I'm so happy to get you and Lietti in a scene together. I wish I had an opportunity for more of that, because I just think the two of you really clicked and interesting. You didn't
And it's
act
so
in this.
funny. It's so funny,
Yeah,
right? Because the
yeah,
togetherness happens later, doesn't
yeah. I know.
happen anymore.
Right. Yeah. So now with this tool, Riverside, actually, we can record ensemble cast, acting. So
Ah.
I think I'm gonna start doing that a bit more.
Okay, so
Uh,
this is like really, is it a higher quality recording that you're
yeah.
getting?
So you know what
Okay.
Riverside does that a lot of the others don't do right is that they figured out that what you have to do to get a good quality recording is to have the recording has to happen locally. So the recording is actually happening on your computer right now. Your recording.
Oh,
It's recording you on your computer, and then when we're done, it gets uploaded. In fact, it's being uploaded as we talk. It's
huh.
little by little. It's progressively uploading more of the file, and then when we hang up, we have to leave the page open for like another minute or two, so it can finish uploading, and then we can close the browser. So it's far superior to the way it used to
Wow.
be, where it was recorded in the cloud, right? And then I downloaded that. But because it was in the cloud, it was a remote recording, which was getting, had ripples from streaming issues and all that stuff. What
Oh.
what is being recorded on your computer is not streaming. It's actually straight full bandwidth audio. So that's the big advantage, I think.
Hmm.
And every person, every actor in the scene would be happening with their computer. And then once it uploads, it just deletes itself from your computer, and that's it. And it's all good.
Well,
So
that's great. That'll be really fun. It'll be a more social experience.
yeah, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. In fact, we're going to do a test next stream. I'm trying to get John Constantine, who plays Casey, Tamara Dowd plays Petra, and Glenn Graber, who plays Hedgie, to do a scene together, just as a test to see how it goes.
Uh-huh.
I think it'll be really interesting because it'll be in the episode that comes out the following week. So kind of cutting it down, cutting it close to the bone. But I figure if
Yeah.
it doesn't work out, I can
Risk
always call them
taking.
back and ask them to pick things up or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, that should be fun.
That's a
So
great idea. I don't know if I want people to see me being Ebba. I'll
right,
have to I'll
the,
have to I'll have to cover my eyes and just not care. Be
yeah,
Ebba like no one can see you.
right,
Like
right.
once like
That's
no one's
okay.
watching.
You
Be
could you
Ebba
could
like no one's watching.
Yeah, I think that the performance trumps everything. So if it's you can give a better performance with your camera off, then that's totally fine. So that's okay.
All right,
Um,
good.
Yeah. So speaking of Ebba, what? So I guess they're quite different characters, really. Renee and
Yes.
Ebba. They're both
Yeah.
kind of crazy old coots, but not that old, I suppose. But they are kind of nuts, both of them in their own way.
Well, Ebba's very old. How old did you say she is?
Yeah.
Like
She's that.
175 or something?
Spoilers. Yeah, that's okay.
Sorry.
No worries.
Sorry.
No worries. That's just something for the few people who caught that to go and
Yeah, you can
jump into
use
the
that. Maybe you
into
can use
this.
that to win prizes or
Yeah, exactly. How old is Ebba, and what's her last name? Yeah, yeah, it's super fun. I probably should be checking the chat, so I'm gonna have to lose the beautiful image we've got there behind us for a moment. It's good to kind of just make sure that we're not missing anybody saying anything in the Twitch chat. And since I'm the only,
Oh, the
um,
Twitch chat. I
yeah,
see.
yeah. So since I'm the only, where
So
is
we're
the chat?
broadcasting from here onto Twitch right now.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. So there is no one speaking in the chat room. Okay. So I'm just going to say hello, Twitch audience of 3. Um, drop us a question if you have any for Noah,
If you dare.
if you dare. Um, yeah, it's weird in the cell phone app. It you can't see who's in the chat, as far as I can tell, which
Oh.
is too bad. But yeah, it's okay. So do you want to? Shall we listen to a little Judy audio wiki,
Absolutely.
and then we can go back and talk a little more.
Yeah.
For the audience, if you're new to this, the Judy Audio Wiki is a series of like 2 to 3 minute audio entries about different aspects of the Mandible Judy universe, and we've played 2 each week in each stream for the last 3 streams. So we're going to keep that up. We've got 2 more tonight. And I'm going to put up a different graphic while we do this. Although I guess we're still on camera. I don't know how to make it go full. It's funny, it says share screen, and I thought that it would go full screen to that screen, but I guess it doesn't. I'm not quite sure how to do that.
I'm so glad I wasn't doing something
Yeah, right.
objectionable.
Me too. Me too. Hey, Junior. Got a doggy here. I feel like I want to get him up on my lap so we can show him to the audience.
I did a Zoom thing, and we were showing a Pete Seeger, a snap of a Pete Seeger documentary, a little excerpt, and the host thought he wasn't on camera.
Oh
He was
no.
singing along.
Oh no.
It was
Oh
just so
no.
precious.
Well,
It was
yeah.
very endearing.
It is
was so
endearing. That's the
hilarious.
thing. See, it's better if it's something embarrassing like that. It's better that it's something endearing rather than,
Exactly.
picking your nose or
I thought
whatever.
of that immediately.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
goodness I wasn't picking my nose.
Yeah, beautiful. Wow. Okay, so let's go to the other graphic. This is the Judy Audio Wiki, entry number 5.
You are listening to the Judy Audio Wiki. Entry number 5, Deadwater Lake. One of the lesser-known lakes in New Hampshire, Deadwater Lake is located outside the town of Ebba in the foothills of the White Mountains. It is approximately 4 miles long and nearly a mile wide in parts. The lake gets its name from an unexplained phenomenon observed in its deepest section.
Dead calm in the center of the lake.
I'm guessing this is where the lake gets its name.
In the July 18, 1923 edition of the Lincoln Herald, a story reported that local fishermen had come across a strange calm at the lake's center, where winds ceased and the surface barely rippled. Years later, witnesses said they heard a strange sound emanating from the perimeter of Willow Island. Recently, a few recordings of this sound have surfaced, which were featured on The Jerry Rivers Show from WQZR Radio by reporter Amanda Walston.
There's the sound. That is the sound I've heard twice before now.
A film and television actress, Walston claimed to have heard the sound herself while on location for the film Vital Impulse. The lake is home to a handful of Ebon families, some of whom claim to have settled there in the 19th century.
There's a lot of history around here. The songs is how it's passed on.
Among the bird calls she could hear whispers and sighs and moans. Whispers and
The town registry records that retired whaler Eberhard Peterson settled on Willow Island in 1882 with his wife and young daughter. A monument bearing his name and a dedication can be found on the north side of the island.
In memory of Captain Eberhard Peterson.
The local fishing community has a reputation for distrusting outsiders and has not been forthcoming with further information that might help investigators understand the strange phenomena associated with the lake.
All right. And that was entry number 5, and we're going to play entry number 6 now.
You are listening to the Judy Audio Wiki. Entry number 6, the Olivia Barrington. Nearly 100 feet in length and carrying 4 whaling boats, the Olivia Barrington was built in 1843 by Ferguson Brothers Shipyard in New Bedford, Massachusetts. The vessel had 3 square-rigged masts, each with topmast and top-gallant mast. It contained what was considered a small hold for whale oil compared to other ships of its time, but was thought to be more maneuverable than most.
tie those gaskets.
Boy, Taylor, you stink.
Records show that the ship, under the command of Captain Eberhard Peterson, brought back more than 27,000 barrels of whale oil before being lost at sea in 1862. The Barrington set out on her final voyage on May 23rd from New Bedford and is thought to have sunk some weeks later, somewhere near the Azores. Some accounts claim that the ship was inexplicably becalmed in the center of a raging storm that lasted days. Peterson and a small crew may have abandoned ship in a whaleboat, while at least 22 shipmates appear to have stayed to wait out the storm. One account says that the captain's whaleboat was sunk in the storm and that he and several crewmen grabbed onto a floating piece of cargo. A sailor from a European merchant vessel says that they were sighted from his ship on June 29th, but only Peterson was still alive. Peterson's own account of these events were never published, and he retired to a quiet life in New Hampshire in the 1880s, where he is thought to have died, having never told his tale. For a short time, there was a great demand for stories of the demise of the Barrington, which probably encouraged less than accurate accounts to surface, thus shrouding the story in further mystery. Numerous voyages have set out since that time to ascertain what happened to the ship and the 20-some crewmen left on board, but none have turned up any evidence whatsoever.
The Judy Audio Wiki.
Fourth-dimensional world. Jerry Rivers, is that a nod to Geraldo Rivera?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I figured.
Yeah, yeah, that was funny because he turned out to be completely different once once the actor kind of took a bite out of the role. Matt Bird is the actor for that role, and he just had this voice like that. And I thought, well, that's great, like a shock jock kind of voice. But then I thought, you sound like a wrestler. Like, what if we made him an ex-wrestler? That would be pretty interesting, kind of like a Jesse Ventura kind of guy.
Yeah.
And Matt said, that's amazing because I used to do voiceover for wrestling. Like, he used to do, actually be like a, I guess, I don't know if it was, at the venues, at the events, or on radio, or what it was. But he was involved in pro wrestling for a while,
Wow.
doing voiceover, and because he's got this great,
It's
really,
a vocal type, and
yeah,
you nailed
exactly,
it. Yeah.
yeah. So he that was another example where the actor completely bent the way I saw the character and made it into
Uh-huh.
something else.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, it's,
What has been the most 180 from what you envisioned to where it wound up?
good question. Wow. I guess it would either be Renee or Jerry. I don't know. I think Jerry maybe just because I originally thought of him, kind of had an idea of him a little bit like the oh God, what's the actor's name? The dude from oh God, my memory is so bad. The Fisher King, Jeff
Oh,
Jeff
um, Bridges?
Bridges. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jeff Bridges' character in that, he's really um, he's just super sarcastic and just really kind of gross. Like that was how I pictured Jerry
Yeah,
Rivers originally.
vaguely remember him.
Yeah.
Of course, it's
Um,
been a very long time since I saw that movie. When you
yeah.
said the dude, I thought, you mean the album by Quincy Jones?
Yeah. Oh
The
wow.
dude.
No, that's the other dude. I meant the dude as in yeah, the Coen Brothers movie, the Big
Yeah.
Lebowski, right? But yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
right,
the dude,
right,
yeah.
right.
Um, but um, but yeah, that I kind of pictured him looking like Jeff Bridges' character from The Fisher King, and maybe a combination of that with Geraldo Rivera.
Oh,
Basically just somebody who's really cynical, super
yeah.
cynical, and doesn't really
Mhm.
believe anything, but does everything for a buck, and will do anything for a buck. And I think
Mhm.
Matt really changed that. He made it into a character with heart, which is really unusual, like, and not at all how I pictured it. He's still pretty sarcastic, but he's not at all like he ended up being an environmentalist. He says a lot of stuff about the environment. I never imagined that when we first started the role. I first started writing for the role. If you listen to the first season of Under Dead Water, I mean, the whole season just is the tone of it is completely different than the tone of the second season. Um,
Mm.
I think in a good way. The second season really kind of has improved upon it to the point where I wish I could go
How do you
back and
describe what you think the tone is? And is it different for you? Is it very different from Mandible Judy?
yeah, it's pretty different from Mandible Judy. Although the one thing that they have in common, obviously, is the kind of paranormal, the focus on paranormal and or aliens and in this case, there's multi-dimensional creatures, so sci-fi in general is what they have in common. But the tone of Mandible Judy was a little bit closer to like an 80s horror movie, like an
Mm-hmm.
80s monster movie or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, where, you know, things happen. Like they don't happen on screen because there is no screen. They happen, in our the sonic screen, I suppose you could say. But like there's, death and there's a lot of mayhem and there's a lot of, horrific stuff happening that I didn't really shy away from. And that's probably just from loving, I don't know, The Thing, old 80s horror movies that I
Oh
just
yeah.
really was attached to. Some of which I did music for, so that definitely had a big
Yeah.
effect on me.
You know,
But
David Clennan's daughter is friends with Asa. They've been in college together.
wow,
So
awesome.
Asa and his daughter were on the texting, and we in our respective homes were talking to each other through our kids.
Oh,
So
that's great.
it was very funny. But I remembered being at your apartment because you showed the thing.
Yeah.
Um, that's my most recent experience of the thing was in
Oh,
that
that's
fall of
right.
2019.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
And you
that's
had all
right.
those people over to watch the thing.
That's right. That was really fun. Yeah.
But you know what I want to ask you is, what do you think about this notion of getting theologians to come and help the people get used to aliens? Uh, what's up with that? Like, why theologians? Do you have
I
any
didn't know
thoughts
that was a
about that?
thing. Is that a thing?
Oh, yeah, this is a story. I'm gonna get the headline just so I can say it
Yeah.
accurately. Theologians, aliens. That's going to be enough of a search because apparently this is
Seriously.
just um, NASA taps theologians to study potential human reactions to aliens 1 day ago.
Wow.
NASA hired 24 theologians to study reaction to aliens. I just find that really odd. Like,
Yeah.
there are philosophers, therapists,
Yeah.
there are Buddhist monks. There are so many different kinds of people that
Yeah.
one could talk to about this.
Yeah,
I
I
just,
would. Yeah, well, it's a governmental body, and the government, American government. I have no problem whatsoever with theologians being involved in that. I mean, they clearly, theologians it's a rigorous,
yes, yeah.
field of study, and that's great, and they probably will have some relevant things to say, but I mean, certainly no more relevant than scientists, astrophysicists, biologists, like you said, therapists even. I mean, there's plenty of other fields that would be more relevant, I think. But
I wonder, when they're going to say, okay, everybody, you all need to be working on this in your own homes, figuring out how you're going to transition yourself to the reality of this world. It's relevant here, of course, because there are alien presences in Mandible Judy and
hmm
Under Dead Water, and people are kind of freaking out about them. So the
yeah,
characters in your stories are potentially going through an experience that we are all about to have.
are we really? So is that what this is about? NASA is saying,
That's
well,
the
we.
supposition behind this, that
hmm
that the NASA, that footage of the
Right.
that came out over the summer, that there have been increased incidents of these things being spotted,
hmm
so activities picking up, and that maybe all of this is like a slow revelation to
Like they don't want to hit us with
Earthlings
it all at once. Yeah,
that they're among us already.
they are among us. That's great. Wow, the truth is
And
out
that's
there,
what
man.
this story is. They're among us in this story, and people are really, Judy is, or there are people before Judy though, right? That kind of
Mm.
change shape because of their encounters with these.
hmm
Um,
Yeah. So the deal is that if they're young enough, they genetically are altered. If after a certain age, like somewhere around 13, 14, 15, they no longer the 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 mother lodestone is no longer able to alter their genetic makeup, um, but it can kind of make them into a sort of a puppet that does their bidding, like Kenny. That's what happens with Kenny. So he's kind of like a minion of the Tromina race of the mother lodestone, and trying to help spread the rocks around. And
do you get freaked out writing about children?
yeah, not really. I mean, yeah, I watch myself because I don't want to upset anybody. Um, like I haven't had children die in this
Well,
series.
the birthday party that
Well,
gets
that's true.
alluded to,
That's yeah, they do die.
but
Actually, they die
you
horribly,
didn't stage
but
the
it doesn't
birthday
happen.
party, and
Right.
that's why, right? Because
Yeah.
that's too intense.
Yeah, so it's alluded to a lot, and you do hear memories of it occasionally. I particularly like that scene where you're back at home and you've closed off that room, and Catherine wants to go stay in that room, and you're like, no, no, you can't stay in that room.
We don't go in there.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
she hears in her mind, I guess she hears the memories of all the things that happened, just the screams mostly.
Yes.
I try to make it. Humor has a really big part. It's important to have
Yes.
humor, in these things. And to me, not that you asked, but I wonder what. And I often say, in fact, I was using the hashtag horror heals for a while because I really do believe,
Oh,
uh,
interesting.
and,
Yeah.
and very black comedy, especially, has a healing. Like, I often say, in fact, I was using the hashtag horror heals for a while because I really do believe,
Yeah.
and very black comedy, especially, has a healing. And for children,
Yeah.
just which is like a song about the plague, right?
Yeah.
Sang that to each other was basically a way for, you know, process
Yeah. Yeah.
everything around them and process it in a way
Yeah.
that was safe. Like they didn't have to actually interact
Yeah.
with death in any way.
Yeah.
Whoops, sorry
Yeah.
about that. But and I think that horror films and horror books and horror media has a, it's done well. It helps us kind of process. I mean, that's why the best horror movies are always about the characters. It's always about something happening to the characters. Um,
Yeah.
so like Jordan Peele, is one of several people pioneering the world of dealing with issues of racism in horror, which I think is
Yeah.
fantastic. Lovecraft
I
Country is
love
also,
Get Out.
yeah,
And I thought the performances in Get Out were just stunning.
yeah, it's
So
brilliant.
beautiful.
It's brilliant. And I mean, and before that, I mean, that obviously it dealt with it on a much more profound level than Night of the Living Dead. But Night of the Living Dead also, dealt with issues of racism. The bat, and that's
Mm-hmm.
pretty much the beginning of horror films. Well, not the beginning of horror films, the beginning of zombie films. Let's put it that way. That's
Yeah.
often pointed to as the first zombie film. It's probably
Yeah.
not actually. I think you could say like Der Golem or something like that, or there are a number of others about voodoo rituals and that stuff. But but yeah, it definitely horror is really good at dealing with issues that are bothering us as a culture, because horror is itself a psychological thing that bothers us as individuals, right? We're scared of things. But
Mm-hmm.
when we're scared of something like a monster, we're actually often really scared of something else
Mm-hmm.
that's more profoundly upsetting, and is an intractable issue in our culture that we need to deal with on some level. And I feel like horror media helps us do that, kind of
Yeah, I
process it.
agree. I think that's true. The horror of living in a body and not being able to control your body, that's definitely an
Yeah,
enormous
yeah,
theme in horror, right?
yeah. David Cronenberg, especially, right?
Especially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of my favorites. I'm a
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, one of the films that did that really well recently is a film I was not all that fond of as a film, but there are moments in it that were really profound. And it was the film Prometheus. Have you seen it? It was
No.
the second to last sequel of the Alien series. So
Yeah, I was going to say, is that a science fiction? Wait, so
yeah,
it's in the Alien series? Because I thought I had seen all of them. So now I don't
yeah,
know. They might be mushing together in my head because there's so many.
yeah.
And I haven't
It's
seen them in a
the
long time.
first one that Ridley Scott directed since the first one. So he directed the first one, which to me is the best
Yeah.
of all of them.
Yeah.
Then James Cameron took it over. Then other directors took it over, and then many years later, Ridley Scott said, "I'm going to make a sequel, to Alien." Actually, I guess it's a prequel, I think. But in that film, the the protagonist is a woman astronaut, and she, I don't want to, no spoilers, but I mean, give herself an abortion, like
Oh.
operate on herself, or is
No,
it an
I do remember
abortion?
that. Okay, I
It's
didn't
either an
see that
abortion
one.
or it's a yeah, I think that's what it, because she's been impregnated by one of the aliens, and
Mm.
and uh, and it's
Oh,
and she has to do it herself, like in a medical bay on a ship with nobody else around, and it's like, oh my god, you're trying to imagine like the pain, the psychological torture that you're going through to do this,
yeah.
let alone any um, any uh, God, what I'm trying to say here, any qualms you might have about abortion itself, right? Giving
Right.
yourself one, is a whole nother level of that. Um,
Yeah.
and anyway, it's kind of it's played in a way that it's not ridiculous in any way. It's very serious. It's really,
Yeah.
and it's very effective. That actress is
Mm.
fantastic, by the way. She's
Mm.
Norwegian, and I wish I could remember her name, but she has a Norwegian name. It's kind of hard for me to remember. Um, But yeah, that's a good a recent example, I think, of that kind of thing being done well. You know. But anyway, when it is done well, it really affects me. I really kind of live for that stuff. I like to be scared. It's fun to be scared, but more I like to have to think about something, and I like to think about especially things that are bugging us as a culture. I think that that's
Right.
really always
Yeah,
really
I've gotten a
interesting.
little scared of being scared. I mean, when I was in my 20s and I was doing cinema studies at NYU, and
Right.
I knew people that were writing their dissertation about horror, and that kind of thing. And so I would see a lot then. And then after having children, my relationship to that
Yeah.
genre changed hugely. It's a lot harder now, but I will watch something that might be kind of softer. Like, I really liked the film Personal Shopper, and I really like that director, Olivier Assayas.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Um,
I heard it's good.
Kristen Stewart is in it,
Yeah.
and I mean, I don't know if you would call it a horror film. It's definitely a ghost story in that she is trying to connect with her brother who has died.
Ah,
And the
okay.
whole story is really about grief and loss, but it's a great pandemic film because
Yeah.
it's about our being isolated and technology being this ghostly way that we communicate with each other. She winds up texting with another entity she thinks may be a ghost at one point.
Okay.
Um, yeah, really like that movie.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds really good. I'd heard good things about it. Yeah, when I had kids, I definitely shied away from anything where children were put in harm's way in the film. You know, I remember watching Train
Yes.
Spotting for the first time, and that really got me. That scene with the baby. I mean, just the
Yeah, I saw that before I had
oh
kids.
my god.
I'm sure I wouldn't watch it now at
Yeah,
all. Just don't want
yeah.
to go anymore. For some reason, I watched the child abduction movie that James McAvoy was just in, where he was not given the full script, but all the other actors were, and
Mm.
he was improvising, so he never knows what's going on.
Oh
He
wow.
has to find out. So I thought this was a fascinating premise, but it's
Mm.
actually really disappointing in execution.
Oh yeah.
But just the idea of a child being abducted is really hard to
It is.
spend
Yeah.
time with. You just don't want to spend your time that way.
Right. Yeah. It's funny though because over time, as my kids got older, I I grew a little bit more resilient to that effect.
Hmm.
I don't like to think about those things, obviously, but if it's done right, I sometimes feel like it's worth it because it helps you think about it and helps you process it on a level that doesn't involve actual people, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
so,
Well, that's true.
but I mean, very dark, like black comedy, has a similar effect for me. I remember when my sister Claire died. It was 8 years ago, actually, on Christmas Day, as a matter of
Oh
fact.
my gosh, Chris!
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it was
You must
really,
really feel this time of year every
yeah,
it
yeah, it
comes
is.
back.
Yeah, and actually, we had two other family members die years at my dad died just a couple years ago, 4 years ago, I think, and my brother-in-law died 5 years ago, and everybody was right around this time of year, basically. My
Hmm.
dad just after Thanksgiving, but anyway, so I remember we all went up to Boston. We were going up there like every weekend to see Claire and her family, as she was, you know, getting closer to dying. They knew pretty much it was going to be any day now for a couple of months, right? And she had lung cancer. Not she was not a smoker, but you know,
Mm.
she picked up something from somewhere. But
Wow.
anyway, so she, it was very hard. Obviously, she has two kids. They're doing well now, and her widower Chip is a great guy, and the family's fantastic. But I remember going up there, and coming back sometimes on the train, sometimes in a car with my brother or sister or somebody else, my older sister. And then, getting back home and having to kind of reacclimate to life, and just being like, feeling so like, what's the point? What am I doing? Like, what is the point of all this? And I had a friend staying over. Um, I guess it happened before that, but he had gotten me into this British comedy series called The Fast Show from the '90s, and there's a bunch of the videos up on YouTube, and there's this one skit that just struck me as hilarious, and it's super dark. Like, it's basically these two, kind of like a Bob Ross scenario, like these two elderly painters in the British countryside. Oh, look, Johnny, isn't that beautiful? Do you see where the clouds are making that blue? And they're like, oh, we've got a little bit of blue, and we're going to mix in some white to get the lightness. And at some point in each of the skits, Johnny becomes obsessed with the color black. And he starts yelling the word black, and he starts like smearing his canvas with black paint. He throws the canvas. He just starts yelling about death and destruction and all things black, basically, in the worst possible way. And I watched it for some reason. It came up on my YouTube feed right when I got back after Claire died. And it was so cathartic. It was ridiculous. Like, it was like I cried after it was over, but it was so cathartic. It really felt like something was lifted off of me just
Yeah.
by doing that. Just
Yeah.
that exercise of laughing about, how horrible life can be, and how unfair it can be. Even though obviously it's not something I would laugh about, with my sister or with anybody, I would not laugh about that. But being able to laugh about it because it was not about real people, it was this fictional, comedic exercise. It really helped me a lot. I think that horror does that in a similar way. It's just not as obvious, It's more obvious
Yeah.
with comedy because you're literally laughing at something really horrible.
Well, when you laugh, energy in you is moving, and it's possible you are releasing stress and trauma, when you do that.
Yeah.
Behind you on that screen, it looks like a flying saucer, okay? So is that you doing that? 'Cause that was starting
wish-
to freak me out a little bit.
It does look like it. Oh, and it's moving. Yeah, you know what it is? It's
that
the
like a
little it's
screensaver?
the Samsung screensaver logo. Yeah, it's the Samsung UFO, right? And
Thought
it
it
is.
was a private message for me because I had brought up
That's right.
UFOs
And it's funny
earlier.
because the glare on the screen, it looks a little bit like a town off in the distance, and
Yeah,
the
like
UFO is
Area
going to visit.
51.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. Wow. Well, I wonder if we have like I guess we don't have a whiteboard kind of thing here. I can draw on the screen here. That would be really
Yeah,
fun.
I watched Don't Look Up the other night. Have you seen
Oh,
that yet?
I haven't
It's a
yet. No.
black
Did you like it?
comedy.
Yeah.
Um, I just really loved Mark Rylance in terms of
Is that an
black
actor?
comedy. Yeah,
What?
he plays a kind of Elon Musk-ish figure.
Okay. Okay.
A super rich,
Right.
super solipsistic,
Yeah. Yeah.
but a genius in certain way.
Right.
Really interesting character. Yeah, I don't know. I might have to see it again to decide. I feel satire is very strange now. That it's
I
really
know.
become unmoored from
Right.
the
Especially.
reference that it would have pushed against
Yeah.
is so destabilized that
Exactly.
it renders it kind of like chaotic and meaningless.
Mm.
But there's some things I really liked about it, but we won't talk about it because they'd be all spoilers.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I've seen the trailer, but that's it. It looks good. I mean, definitely would like to check it out. And most of what I've heard from people is that it's pretty good. There's like maybe one or two people who thought this isn't as clever as it thinks it is, and that's usually true, frankly.
Yeah.
Because the way and by as it thinks it is, what people really mean is it's not as clever as the movie. The movie studio wants to lead you to believe it is in the trailer and in the press. right. Because of course, what are they going to say? Well, this is almost as funny as Doctor Strangelove. You know, they're not going to say that, right?
Right.
So they're going to present
Apparently,
it as
some
if it
review
is.
did compare it to that, but I don't know. I don't know about that
I mean,
comparison.
it was a different world, right, back then. I mean, it's interesting
Yeah.
because nuclear annihilation did seem a lot more like it was about to happen when Doctor Strangelove came out. And actually, even after Doctor Strangelove came out during Reagan.
Well, quite a lot of people had been annihilated.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, like, but as far as like, you know, yeah, actually, that's what it was about too. Yeah, it was about dropping a bomb, right? So you're right. So
Yeah.
it had already happened, and yeah, and we were like trying to process that. And Terry Southern, you know, is a great satirist, and he just did
Yeah.
such a great job with that script. And
Yeah.
God, Peter Sellers, what a genius! Oh my God,
Mm,
apparently a horrible person, but really funny and really talented. Um,
really great in that, that's
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. I loved to watch the Strangelove character and think, yeah, totally based this off of Kissinger.
Kissinger, I know. I do too. I love that.
Wow.
Villain for our time.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm not gonna watch if I watch Don't Look Up. I'm not gonna go in thinking, well, this had better be as good as Doctor Strangelove, or else, because very few films can live up to that. Another favorite from that era is The Manchurian Candidate, the original one. Have you seen
Yes.
that? God,
Yeah.
I love that movie. It's
Yeah.
so funny. It's also really dark and really bizarre. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like some of the humor in that is so strange.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the scene where Sinatra is on the train and Janet Leigh is there, and she's trying to give him her phone number. I mean, on the face of it, you think she's basically trying to pick him up, but it's actually she is trying to influence him, right? Um, and so, like, you know, politically, so she's trying to get a contact with him, but it's just
Yeah.
so spaced out because everything's been happening, and he's just like basically dreaming out loud, and she's just going 603-492. You know, she keeps repeating her phone number to him. Like, remember that number. God, it's so weird.
Really liked Winter Kills too.
Oh
I
yeah,
like the like conspiracy
yeah.
movies. And one I watched again was All the President's Men, and it was so wild to watch it now, and that old newsroom with the typewriters and
Right. I haven't seen it
that
since it came out.
telephone.
I'm really be curious to see what I think about it now. I wish I didn't know as much as I know about Woodward and Bernstein that I learned after that movie came out.
Yeah, I knew
But
nothing. That was my way in. That was when I
yeah,
started to think journalism was interesting.
yeah.
It was because I saw that movie when I was young.
Why didn't they ever make a movie about Ben Bagdikian? You know, or
They still could.
they still
I
could.
think we know a few people do a good job on the screenplay.
Yes, we do.
Wait, Ben
Absolutely.
Bagdikian, isn't he figure in that Washington Post movie?
Yeah, I think he does.
He's a,
I mean, he's fictionalized, right? You mean the one about the Washington Post?
yeah.
Yeah. What is that called?
What
God.
am I thinking of? Am I thinking of the one? Is it Tom Hanks is playing Ben Bradley?
Oh, you might be right. Yeah, it's the Catherine Graham kind of. It's that whole story. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was when was that? It was about like 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. Is that the one you're talking
uh,
about?
that sounds about right. It's always more years ago than I thought because
Right.
time is really.
Maybe
It
it's
was
not that long ago. I don't
played
know.
by Bob Odenkirk, The Post. Yeah,
Yeah, that's right. And so Bob Odenkirk plays Ben Bagdikian.
yeah.
Amazing. Wow.
Who
I wonder if
wrote
he.
the Washington Post reporter who wrote about the Pentagon Papers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
That's cool.
sort of they've made a movie about Ben
Yeah,
Baghdadi.
yeah, yeah, I guess they have.
Okay, he should be the hero,
I
not
know.
Ben Bradley and Catherine Graham.
Of course, right? Wow.
But
Yeah.
about Ebba,
Yeah.
you asked a bit about Ebba. We started to talk about Ebba.
Yeah.
What else should we say about Ebba?
What should we say about Ebba? What How do you solve a?
I find
What is it?
she's a little bit harder to empathize with, but I feel like if when I find more backstory about her, it's going to help me than I know now. That is.
Yeah.
Um, and I think, I mean, the reason that this is relevant about aliens,
Mm-hmm.
all this talk about aliens, is that I was listening to an interview with a scientist about this whole question of if there are aliens among us, what are we going to do? And she said, you know, if there are aliens among us and they're here and they're using this anti-gravity technology to fly around and everything,
Right.
they're very much technologically advanced beyond us. So
Yeah.
the thing to do when we meet them is succumb to their agenda.
Right.
You know, they're going to be setting the terms of the discussion, not us.
Right. Right. They're gonna bring a big book, and it's gonna be called "To Serve Mankind."
To serve man.
To serve man. Right.
It's a cookbook. Exactly.
So
And I
we
feel
gotta
like there's
let
something
'em
of that
cook
with
us.
Ebba. Ebba's like, you know, it's like, well, they're here and they have
Right.
certain needs, and you know, it becomes, it kind of distorts your moral framework that you're used to, because you're used to placing humans at the top of
Yes.
the ladder of concern, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here it's like, well, these creatures have certain needs, and I'm helping them.
Well, it's also transactional, right? So, I mean,
Right.
I don't want to give away too much, but there
Right.
is a
There's
transactional
transactional
aspect to
element.
this whole
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
Um, so, yeah, so on one hand, you could think of these characters as, and I say these characters because there's another character in the story that I don't want to give anything away, but that has a similar motivation. Um, and uh, yeah, it's so you think about them as being somewhat um, selfish, right? But on the other hand, you also think of them as maybe deluded that they're part of the future and that they're helping the good guys to win or something along those lines, or the superior race to win.
Right. Right.
So yeah, it's a hard one to figure out motivationally, and that's why I'm taking my time writing her character into the story. A lot more is going to have to happen with her in season 3, because it's not really resolved in season 2 completely. But you do learn by the end of the season basically what her situation is. But yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of questions I don't even know yet, but I'm just gonna have to deal with them. I've actually started writing season 3, so I'm beginning to deal with it now. Luckily for me, what happened with season 2 is that I cut it off. I wrote 15. I didn't write 15 episodes, but I outlined 15 episodes, and I thought that's too long. Why don't we cut it off at like 10 or 11, and then just move the other 4 to season 3? So because of that, I've got outlines for at least 4 episodes in season 3 already done. So I just need to write the dialogue and
See,
the
a season
scenario.
can be any length you say.
It can be, but I like to try to keep them relatively like digestible as a season. You know, I don't want to sprawl too much. And so far, I think Mandible Judy was 9 episodes in season 1, 10 in season 2, and 10 in season 3. Under Dead Water was 10 in season 1, so it'll be 11 in season 2, and then season 3 will pick up from there. But it's good to have some of it already kind of mapped out, so I kind of know where the story is going. It's just the getting there is going to be, and there's these
I
big.
think it's so interesting, the dilemma and the opportunity of the serial writer. That even if you don't have it mapped out, that doesn't mean it's not going to work, and that you're not going to find callbacks to things that you wrote earlier. And I think that's part of the creative process of doing something serially. I mean, I think Fleabag, the second season of Fleabag, was written after Phoebe Waller-Bridge had done the first season.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you get this sense of her completing the story, and that everything in the first season, that builds very naturally and beautifully,
Mm-hmm.
and goes to a whole new level in the second season. It addresses things that irritated me in the first season.
Good, yeah.
My compassion for the character really grew in the second season.
Yeah.
Or you think about someone like Dickens or anybody who wrote serially,
Mm-hmm.
in the 19th century, and that it's just out there.
Yeah.
Like, it's just published and out there, and you have to
Yeah.
make the story continue to build on that.
You know what's great about RSS feeds, podcasts, is that you can revise them, and the old version
Oh.
is just is basically written over. So
Oh.
if people have downloaded the old version, they have it locally on their machine, they have it, and that's fine. But if new people are listening to the series, I can always go back and revise something if I feel I
And you
did
haven't
something
done
wrong.
that. You're saying you could do that. but you
I've
haven't.
done it for credits. Like I've left people out of credits by accident, and I've gone back and revised the credits and re-uploaded the file, and it just replaces the old file. So anybody listening to it again or for the first time, here's the new version. So theoretically, I could go back and replace everything I've done with new versions. Like it would be good to be able to go back and remix it, because I know a lot more about mixing now, make it sound better.
Yeah.
And remaster it. That would probably be worth the time, but I just don't have the time right now to do it, because I'm still in production season 2 of Under Dead Water, and I'm probably going to dive right into season 3. But if I did have the time, it might be worth doing that. But it's kind of interesting that you can go back and revise. It's not like George Lucas dropping a bunch of CG into the early Star Wars movies out of nowhere, and everybody getting upset because, like, I mean, I would, I guess it's kind of similar to that, but it isn't, in the sense that if people are listening directly from the stream, the RSS stream, then they don't really ever have the original version. They just have whatever the current version is.
Right.
So that's kind of interesting. It's one thing that's different about the media. It's just kind of served up as you go, which makes it good for serials.
RSS feed means that across all of those podcast platforms, or whatever they're called,
Yeah,
that would all be updated.
it's all updated. Some
So
of them
they
take
change
longer
stuff
than
without
others.
feed.
Usually, within a couple of days, everything's updated on all
Wow.
the platforms. Sometimes within a couple of hours, certain platforms update.
That's really great.
Yeah, it depends on what their cycle is, like how often they update. But yeah, it is pretty cool, because if you make a mistake or you do something that you realize, you can just update the file immediately. Like I've done that, where I realized, oh, this is too long, I'm going to cut that scene out, or cut this one part out, and then, like, the old version that was slightly longer is only online for whatever 3 hours, and then I upload a new version, and it just replaces the old version before, hopefully before too many people downloaded it. But a lot of people don't even download it. They just listen to it from an app, and it doesn't get downloaded at all. It just streams right through the app, and that's it. And they never have a physical copy of it, a file. Yeah, I like that about it. It's kind of cool that you can do that.
Do you
but-
have a favorite horror podcast that you listen to?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm like a lot of other people. I'm a big fan of No Sleep podcast. It's a kind of a community effort. I mean, it's run by a couple of people. I've seen them present it live at the Bell House in Brooklyn. They did it there.
Is it a different story each
Yeah,
time?
it's anthology style. Yeah.
Okay, I wonder if I was listening. Is it ghost stories?
It can be ghost stories. It's sometimes just weird creepiness. It's sometimes more horrific. It's usually
Was there one
ghost
about
type stuff.
a woman who has a band, and she's living in her family home, and it's haunted?
I don't know, maybe. I haven't listened to all of them for sure. They're like in their 16th or 17th season now, I think.
Oh, there's a lot of them.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a lot of them out there. So I've gone back and listened to some of the old ones, but mostly I've listened to the new ones because actors from Mandible Judy are also in No Sleep podcast. Aaron Lillis and Graham
Oh.
Rowett and David Steele, um, amongst others. So I see them post about it, and I was aware of the No Sleep podcast, but I really kind of got into it because of them, and just find that it's inspiring. It's great. They do a really nice job. Are really good sound design. It's not quite as detailed, the sound design aspect, as Mandible Judy and Under Dead Water. They play it a little bit lighter, which is probably smart because the production time is probably not as long. But they do a great job. They do a lot of detail, and the acting is fantastic. It's all really good. You should check it out.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do
it's worth.
you've got the music from Mandible Judy out somewhere, right? Like
Yeah, it's on
Bandcamp.
Bandcamp. Did I not send you a download link? I was supposed to have sent everybody a download link, and I'm sure I forgot. But
Well, it's
everybody should
possible
have
you
that.
did. Okay. I'll go
Do you
back.
have you use Bandcamp sometimes?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
To just download, I'll send you a link. It's a code. You just go to the link and you enter the code, and you can download the MP3s. Um, but yeah, it's been up there, I guess, since just after the end of season 3. So when was that? Last spring. But yeah, and Under Dead Water season 1 and 2 soundtrack will be probably released sometime this spring or summer. I'm guessing. I've got to master all that and record other. I probably need to record some longer versions. What part of the problem is that I only need 15 or 20 seconds of music each time. I don't need like these long pieces. So I
Right.
tend not to write full pieces. I tend to write these half length pieces,
Yeah.
and or even less. And by the time the end of the season comes around, I'm like, I've got this collection of like 35 20-second themes. So what I did with Mandible Judy is I went back and extended some of them, and combined a few, put them together into one piece. So it was like
I see.
part 1 of it and part 2.
Yeah.
But there are still a lot of really short pieces. There are a lot of like 1 minute, 1.5 minute pieces in the score. But it is the Mandible Judy score is I think 50 minutes of music, so it's pretty long. It's longer than a
Wow.
normal record.
Yeah.
It's just that there's a lot of short pieces and segues and things. But there are also songs. We did 3 songs for the band Andalusian.
Yeah.
They have
And
3
I
songs.
think there should be an album just of that music.
Well, we did an EP. There is an EP on Bandcamp, on the Mandible Judy Bandcamp,
Okay.
which you can go and listen to all this stuff for free. I mean, it's just that if you listen 3 times, then it forces you to buy it if you want to listen to it anymore.
Oh, okay.
But you can listen 3 times to get all of it. But it's mandiblejudy.bandcamp.com. So there's an Andalusian EP, a 3-song EP up there, and then there's the Mandible Judy soundtrack. I think I just called it Music for Mandible Judy, and then there's the Motherlode editions, which are completely inaccessible except for some. I think I made certain music tracks accessible, and then the actual Motherlode editions of the episodes you have to pay for. You have to buy them. You don't have to, but people, yeah, supporters, hopefully somebody. No, we've sold a few of them. It's been nice. There's been some support, but this is the kind of thing you need to be doing, like I said, for a while before it catches on, in a way that allows you to kind of pay your cast. I mean, I've been paying my cast anyway out of my pocket, but I'll be able to pay people a lot better if we actually get full support at some point.
Right, and you're on Patreon, right?
Yeah, so it's just kind of we spread it out everywhere we possibly can. So we're on Patreon. We've got releases on Bandcamp, or if you want, instead of subscribing on Patreon for a per episode amount, you can just go to Bandcamp for all of the Motherload editions, the bonus episodes, and just buy them outright. So that's another way you can do it. And then a third way you can do it is you can go to mandiblejudy.supercast.com, which is a relatively new platform. And the advantage of that one, the thing I like about them is that you can basically connect it to any podcast listening app that you have. So if you listen using Podbeam or Stitcher or any of those, iTunes or Amazon Music or whatever, you can connect it to Supercast. And if you pay the monthly fee for Mandible Judy, you automatically get all of the bonus Motherload stuff in the same stream. So you'll see all this stuff that non-supporters won't see, and you'll be able to listen to it. So that's kind of cool because you don't have to go somewhere else to listen to it. You know?
That's good. Just shows
Yeah.
up for you.
Yeah, that's what I prefer, but it's a relatively new platform, and I'm hoping it gets more adopted. So far, it seems to be growing pretty quickly. I think they're around for a while, so I have high hopes. But yeah. So, well, hopefully we'll have some Motherload work for you if you are interested in doing any.
Yeah. All right.
I've written a couple of
I've
ideas.
not been cultivating my voiceover work at all.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I stalled out when my walk-in closet proved inhospitable to voice work due to the machinery therein
right.
that
Yeah.
makes sounds.
Oh, yeah, right. I think it's okay to not do it in the closet, like if you're on a bed or like around a bunch of fabric, it should be okay. As long as you're not in a room that's really a lot of wood and ringy and,
Yeah,
it should
I
be all right.
think I'm hearing something that I think would be picked up.
Yeah.
It's just like
Well, that I don't worry about as much because I can get rid of noise. It's more reflections off the walls and ceiling, like your voice, like an echo. That's more problematic.
more problematic. Okay.
Yeah, so if it sounds bouncy to you, like if you clap your hands and you hear a little bit of a bounce,
Yeah.
like it sounds like it rings a little, then that's probably not great. But as long as you're not screaming in the part, it can work.
Okay.
So if you do scream, you can always put like 2 pillows in front of you or something. I've done
Yeah.
that before,
Yeah.
and it absorbs just enough of it. But yeah, I haven't written it yet, but I've got an idea for. Actually, I have written it. Come to think of it, I wrote it, a Motherload edition episode with René. Yeah, so
Fun. That last one was really fun to record. I think that was the most fun because the environment was so vivid. Going into
great.
the cave and it's
Yeah.
cold and the water and wet. And
yeah, you did didn't you do something like you put your face in a bunch of water and like came up out of it and
I
it sounded
remember
great.
Doing something was that,
Or maybe a glass of water. Maybe it was a glass of water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It sounded very real. Yeah, so I feel like we left Renee in a very vulnerable place in that episode.
Definitely.
So, I wanted to revisit that and see what happens to her.
Was that a Motherload edition?
Yeah, so that one
Yeah, it was, right?
has only been heard by supporters and,
Wow.
I know. So I guess eventually these could see the light of day, because enough new Motherload editions will be out that the old ones can become available. But you've heard it, right?
Is this Riverside? If we both speak, are we both heard
Yeah,
at the same time?
yeah. So it's just voice
You could
canceling
come on
ourselves.
here and do music. Collaborate.
You could, except there's probably a bit of a delay between you and me.
Oh.
So I'm hearing you. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. The times that I've tried to do that. Here, let's try it. I'm gonna clap my hands and see if you can clap in sync with me.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we're way
Not
off
quite.
from my
Not quite.
from my point of view, we're way off. So that's the thing, right? Is you're hearing me on a delay, so when you do it, by the time it gets back to me, it's also on a delay.
Yeah.
So you could sync them up later probably, because I get these as separate tracks.
But you couldn't do a live stream.
Yeah,
Um,
a collaboration.
performance.
I mean, unless it was non-rhythmic, if it was just ambient and amorphous, you know, where there's no timing
Didn't
issues.
matter. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be off by a couple seconds and not make a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that kind of thing works. I've seen people do that. Not on Riverside, but on other, you know. Yeah, that's still a problem. That's a hard one to get around because the data still has to get from one place to
Well,
another.
what they have to figure out, wouldn't it be the thing to do would be to figure out what the to artificially delay you or something to sync it up with.
Yeah, how do you do that though? You can't because you're hearing yourself in real time.
Luckily, that's not my problem.
Yeah, right.
Just had an
Exactly.
idea.
Yeah. I've thought about that, but then like you're actually hearing yourself in real time, right? I'm hearing myself clap in my room, right?
Right.
So I'd have to delay that in order to match you. And you can't delay what you're hearing in front of you, you know, unless you have cochlear implants or something to delay. Yeah. It's probably
You get it.
possible.
You get special earbuds.
Yeah, but then you wouldn't be able to perform because you'd be hearing everything late. You'd be like, oh damn. That's pretty funny. It would make some interesting performances.
Yeah.
Very questionable timing choices.
Yeah, it would be like my friend Foot, the Shags.
Oh yeah, yes, my friend Foot. Oh my God, I forgot about that. That's so great. Wow, history of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm gonna call it. It's early, 10:30, but we can
Normally you go to 11.
sometimes it really depends. We've gone to 10:30 before.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, like to quote Joni Mitchell, leave them wanting more, man. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Quote Joni Mitchell as much as you can.
Yeah. Before you go, speaking of Joni Mitchell, one of my favorite live performances was that thing that you were involved with, that tribute to Joni.
It was so great.
Oh man, it was so
great.
much
I
fun.
think about that a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
I actually, I had this idea, why I was asking about the performing and
Yeah.
being heard if you perform with someone else. I had this idea for my 60th birthday. I made a playlist of 6 songs, 6 decades. It was going to be called 6 decades, 6 decades, 6 songs, and cake. And it would be a performance of me
Eating
with an
cake.
accompanist doing 6 songs for my 60th birthday, which just happened.
Yeah. Happy birthday. That's great.
Thank you.
I think I did wish you happy
But
birthday on
COVID has
Facebook.
just screwed me over.
Yeah, I know.
So I
I'm
can't
sorry.
really celebrate it. Next week, my sister and I were going to go to an inn upstate New York together, but she's not comfortable, so that's gotten squashed. Very hard to celebrate any other way than alone right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so one of them was going to be people's parties. That was one of my 6
Oh,
songs
yeah.
that I chose. But
The
that
song
was
about
such a great night, and it was so much
Yeah.
fun, and all those people were fantastic.
Yeah. Is that one of the ones about Warren Beatty? I think it is.
Oh, is it really?
I think
don't
it's
remember that.
or is from when
I
she
mean, I
was
think
dating
it's
Warren
about going
Beatty.
to parties in California,
Yeah.
but I don't know who Warren Beatty it would be in that song.
Well, it wasn't specifically that he was anybody in the song, but it was about like going to parties at his Hollywood parties with Warren
Oh,
Beatty, I guess.
probably at his house.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think so. If I
Darn.
recall correctly, what was the author's name? I've forgotten. Who wrote the book that they was doing the readings in between the songs? Girls Like Us.
Oh my God!
is the book.
Yeah, I've forgotten her name.
yeah.
Also.
But yeah, I think that she told that story that one
Oh.
and Free Man in Paris is about David Geffen.
Right, and
Right.
at people's parties, like probably Carly Simon was wandering through writing "You're So Vain."
I know, it's crazy.
But then
It's crazy.
I also was really drawn to the Graham Nash song "Our House,"
Yeah. Hmm.
which that's funny because that's their house. Him and
Yeah.
Joni Mitchell.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's what it's about. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she wrote, I think, God, which songs? She wrote a lot of Blue, I think, was written in the breakup with Graham Nash.
Wow.
And
What a
is that
brilliant
right?
album. What a beautiful album.
Or no, sorry. Yes, some of the songs were written during the breakup, and they ended up on the record, which was like a year and a half later. But meow.
The cat is like, let me out of
Yeah.
this room now.
Right.
Sorry.
That's okay. Meow.
Go.
But did you see that this is this is really not what people tuned in for here if they're tuned in for anything. But did you see that Carrie, the original Carrie from the song, finally basically came out as the guy that the song's written about? Yeah.
Okay.
So they other people have said that they were Carrie in the past and it was a lie. He's the actual Carrie. Joni Mitchell confirmed it. Yeah, it's amazing. And they've met in a cave in Crete. Like it was a hippie retreat that she went on after she broke up with Graham Nash. And she met this guy Carrie there, and he was really kind of cranky. He's a cranky dude, and
It's really his name?
Yeah, his name's Carrie. It's spelled differently than it's Cary as opposed to Carey. But it's him, and so she started dating him. Yeah, he's from like St. Louis or something, I think. But a really interesting past, really interesting person, and he was very bitter about the relationship because he still keeps in touch with her and they talk every now and then. But like he's kind of bitter about it because she started something with him and then she basically took off back to Hollywood, back to Laurel Canyon, and then she very quickly sent him a plane ticket to fly there and live with her. He stayed there and he said like every other day Crosby, Stills, and Nash would come to visit, like all three of them. And he said they just sat on our couch like brass monkeys, staring at me. They didn't trust me. They don't know who I was, and they're like, "Who is this guy? He's influencing Joni and whatever." Like the usual, male, control freak lunatics.
This is after they had broken up, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, Graham was trying to get back.
I need to read
with
a
her.
biography of her.
Yeah, she's apparently not the nicest person in the world, but very interesting, really interesting person. I also was just recently reading a lot about Marianne Faithfull. I think you saw me post that record, Blazing Away.
No.
Oh, you didn't? Yeah, I'm a huge fan, and actually saw her performing that concert literally 2 blocks away from here at St. Anne's Church. Like,
oh, wow.
Yeah, in whenever that was, 1989 or 19 something. I can't remember when it was, 91, 92, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
But it's a great live record. But anyway, I was reading about her life, and yeah, similar kind of thing. Like, also became a mother when she was in no position to be a mother. And I mean, that's what happened with Joni Mitchell. Her child was given up for adoption, and then she met the child many years later. Tried to make it work. The kid was like, you know what? I don't need this. Bye. Something along those lines. Wow. And with Marianne Faithfull, I think that they did amicably reunite. It was a son, I believe, with her first husband, her first husband, before she started dating Mick Jagger. But drugs and Mick Jagger basically broke up that marriage. So I don't know how much fault it was of Mick Jagger's, but that's what happened. But yeah, it's fascinating because like people with really rocky, questionable lives often have some really amazing stories. I wouldn't want to live those lives, but I really love reading about them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she's a favorite.
artists of that type. Trying to think of like the really kind ones. I don't know.
Yeah, no, there aren't many, I guess. Well, there are, I mean, I think that there are artists that are, like especially in bands, there are bands that are good to each other and they treat each other well. Like
Mm-hmm.
there are number of really democratically, organized bands nowadays. Like Radiohead's a good example, where everybody gets songwriting credit no matter what anybody does, just to
That's
keep it
quite
together, just to keep the band together, make
right.
sure everybody benefits. Because it really isn't, it's really unfair the other way around, like who
Definitely.
wrote the chords and lyrics? That's the person who wrote this. So why isn't everybody involved writing? But
Yeah. Did you watch the Beatles?
I haven't yet. I'm really curious. Have you?
Yeah.
Uh huh.
Yeah, we watched it like the day it was streaming. The first day it was streaming, we did 3 days in a row. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it was. I found it really fascinating in all kinds of ways,
Yeah, I bet. I mean,
and I'm sure you will.
I will definitely. Just been waiting for the right time and the right people to watch it with. Tamara's been away. I wanted to watch it with my roommates, but it was hard getting everybody together with COVID going on.
Uh-huh.
At this point, we've all been tested, so I think we can do it now. But yeah, I kind of what I keep saying to people is I kind of wish that they had made that documentary a little earlier in their career, like namely around the White Album, because now that would really be interesting to me.
Mm.
I like Get Back fine. It's a good record. I mean, they don't really have a bad record. Every record they made is kind of amazing um, in a different way. But it was a period where I think if there was ever a period where they were kind of struggling with to come up with a sound, that was probably it. But that might make it more interesting in a way. I don't know.
Hmm. No, I'll be interested to hear what you think
Yeah.
about
I mean,
that.
you can definitely hear the Billy Preston influence in the record.
Amazing.
Yeah.
He just really lights the place up when he comes in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, they're all lucky he's there.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard that. That's really cool. Yeah, what an interesting combination. That's really kind of great.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, thanks again, Noah. I appreciate your
You're
being here,
welcome.
and I'll be in touch
My
about some
pleasure.
Motherload editions stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stop streaming, but if you would stay on with me for a moment while it finishes uploading.
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Folks, see you in 2 weeks. I think what we're going to do in 2 weeks, we're going to try to do a live recording with at least 3 cast members. So tune back in 2 weeks if you can. And next week is Under Dead Water Season 2, Episode 5. Streaming on a podcast streaming app near you. Good night.